Welcome back to America's Voice Live. Well, back in February, an Oregon school district hosted a diversity summit for staff in which teachers shared their opinions on how to stop what they're calling systemic racism. Some saying one of the teachers' comments may have gone a little too far. Take a listen.
Be as bold as those idiot invaders, insurrectionists about storming that Capitol. Go about this change like them. They're wacky, but you know what to do. So have that same energy. Okay.
To talk more about this, I have here with me the executive director of the Freedom Foundation, Erin Withe. Thank you so much for joining me. Erin, this is something that we're seeing across the country, but what I'm hearing behind the scenes from teachers is that not all teachers agree with this, but they're being pushed into this curriculum in schools. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, Tudor, it absolutely is. My wife is a public school teacher, and she's told me the horror stories firsthand. Most teachers want to go in and teach subjects like math and English and what they're actually brought into the schools to do. However, what we're seeing is teachers' unions bring this critical race theory into the classrooms. And what their agenda really is they're trying to indoctrinate our kids and bring up the next generation of liberal and democratic voters rather than actually preparing them to go into the workforce and provide into society. And that's the agenda of the teachers' unions. It's the agenda of the left. Most teachers do not agree with it. And this school district in Oregon, Beaverton, for example, the Freedom Foundation has been running an education campaign in Oregon since 2018 now to educate all teachers of their rights to actually opt out and leave their union. And it shouldn't surprise you or the viewers here to know that the Beaverton School District has seen the biggest decline in teachers leaving their unions than any other school district in the state. It's because the Beaverton School District and the teachers union there does not represent the interests of these teachers, and teachers see right through it.
But if you look at this new infrastructure plan, there are actually embedded into this new infrastructure plan from the federal government protections for unions and almost taking away right to work, which would allow you to not join the union in some of these states. How big of a threat is what the Biden administration is doing right now to folks who don't want to join their union?
The Biden administration, he said it when he was a candidate, he's going to be the most pro-union president in history. That does not mean he represents the interests of the employees. It means he represents the interests of the unions. Biden took millions of dollars in campaign contributions from unions, specifically government unions, across the country. Fortunately, the PRO Act, which is going through Congress right now, that would be pretty much exclusively affecting the private sector, not the public sector. It's certainly not a good bill, but the U.S. Supreme Court said that every public employee has the right to stay out of their unions and not join if they don't want to. That right was affirmed to them in 2018. The Biden administration cannot touch that.
But even if you don't join the union as a teacher, what recourse do you have if this is the curriculum? Because right now, in Michigan, for example, there was just an announcement that almost 100% of teachers in Michigan are vaccinated, at least with the first dose. There's just a few left that need the second dose, unless they chose not to get it at all. But here we just had the Lansing Teachers Union come out and say, doesn't matter, we're still not going back to school. We know some of those teachers would like to go back to school. We know some of these teachers don't agree with critical race theory, but the union seems to be in control even if you're not a member of it. What do they do?
You see the same thing in Michigan and all the other liberal states. What these teachers need to do is they need to push back on the teachers' unions. And if they can't get anywhere with that, they need to opt out of those unions and stop paying them union dues. Think about it. The teachers' unions extract around $800 to $1,100 a year from every teacher that belongs to one of these unions. And that's what makes them so big and so powerful. If teachers opt out of their unions and stop paying union dues, then they actually have the ability to hold those unions accountable and make them actually represent them and represent their rights rather than critical race theory and keeping our kids out of classrooms. If this COVID shambles and keeping our kids out of classrooms hasn't opened the general public's eyes to how big these teachers' unions are, I don't know what will, because they've literally been able to keep our kids out of the classroom for over a year now in some places. It's disgraceful.
I think many parents, and I will say that I was one of these a few years back, believed that the teachers union was there to support the students. There's a reason it's called the teachers union and not the students union. It has nothing to do with what the kids need or what's best for the kids in the classroom. So I want to ask you, we've seen a lot of parents say, we're done. If they have the money, we're done. We're taking our kids out of public school. We're either homeschooling or we're going to private school. Do you think that come 22, when the decision is going to be made to keep some of these kids home again, because you know in the fall they're going to say, oh, we can't open up just yet, the virus is spiking again. Do you think that all of a sudden we're going to see a shift from public education to private education, and this is ultimately going to hurt those neighborhoods that need public education the most?
We've already started to see it in some places, a lot of parents opting to take their kids into private schools and do homeschooling. I think one of the big problems here is the affordability of private schools and the inability for some parents to teach their kids from home and do homeschooling. That's why school choice is so important, so that kids and parents have the ability to actually go and choose what schools these kids are going to. And the charter school option is a great option for those that can get into it. We need to make that available for every single child. Unfortunately, the teachers' unions will not allow that to happen. They have a monopoly on public education, and they know if they can take union dues from public school teachers and kids start going into charter schools, we're not going to need the vast amount of teachers that are there. And the best teachers are then going to go out into these private schools and charter schools, because those are the ones that are already delivering the Cadillac education that they can provide.
You have an interesting message, though. I find it very fascinating to think about the teachers do have the control if they take that money away from the union, because power really is only there as long as you have the money to be powerful. So it will be interesting to see what happens in the next year if there is another year of COVID and we have schools closed. Teachers, I believe so many teachers want to be in the classroom. Thank you so much, Aaron Withe. We appreciate having you here and having your insight. We'd love to have you back sometime.
Thank you. We'd love to be back.
Thank you, and everybody else, stay tuned. After the break, we'll be sharing some stories that about what makes America wonderful.